My guest today is Mauricio. Mauricio is the co-founder of Ledn. Bitcoin-backed loans done right. This is a growing trend in the Bitcoin space. We'll learn all about this today. Welcome to the show, Mauricio.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you for having me. As you point out, Bitcoin-backed loans are all the rage now, and it's the moment we've been building for since 2018. So very happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show, just before we jump into, the wonderful world of Bitcoin-backed loans. Be good to learn just a little bit about yourself. Please tell us a little bit about your personal and professional, background, your backstory. What have you been doing in the lead up to co-founding Ledn?
Thank you. Well, I'll try to give a succinct journey, but I'm born and raised in Venezuela with the rest of my family. I lived there till really 2003 when I left to go to university in Canada, but I've always been back and forth. My family's, a lot of it is still there. They left later on. But I had the privilege or misfortune of watching the country collapse into authoritarianism and the country or the currency really disintegrate in hyperinflation. And it was in that context of the horrendous capital controls, I would say almost inhumane restrictions for people to protect their savings. It was illegal to buy dollars. It was illegal to, according to them, hoard non-perishables. And by hoarding, I mean more than 3 cans of tuna. And they had a very clear mission to impoverish Venezuelans by forcing them to use their fiat and making everything else that you could save in or purchase, like the US dollar, illegal to buy. And it was in this context that my family finds Bitcoin, and we start mining Bitcoin. And in hyperinflation, I say often that you recognize good money when you see it, because the Bolivar was depreciating. Our currency was basically disintegrating relative to the dollar, but Bitcoin was appreciating in US dollar terms. And for many Venezuelans, when they bought Bitcoin out of necessity because they had to get rid of their Bolivares, and they saw assets appreciate in dollar terms. I know this sounds completely normal for someone in North America or an OECD market, but for someone in Latin America, the dollar is typically the top of the mountain. You don't really ever get to own something that appreciates in US dollar terms. And when we saw this, it was extremely exciting, not just for myself and many others around me and my family. And when we started mining it, we wanted to help everyone else do the same. So my cousins started mining, my friends started mining, my uncles, everybody, or a lot of people in Venezuela basically caught on to how great this was, and you could get freedom money by mining it. And that started this journey. This idea of Bitcoin-backed loans come from a few different places, but the original one was when we were in hyperinflation. Many people did very well shorting the Bolivar, shorting the currency that was disintegrating. And the way you do that is you take a loan on it and you use the proceeds of that loan to buy a harder asset, whether that is the US dollar, gold, etc. And many people did fantastically well shorting the Bolivar, effectively turning hyperinflation from a headwind to a tailwind. So instead of it being a headwind to your savings, it becomes a tailwind to your debt. And I saw many people use debt responsibly and do very, very well. So this idea of shorting a weak currency by anchoring a long position on a very strong currency was already in my mind. And when we started mining Bitcoin, we kept having to sell Bitcoin to cover our expenses, like power, electric bills, equipment upgrades, etc., new facilities, new sites. And it was always a mistake to sell the Bitcoin because we were never able to buy back as much because it was appreciating so fast in US dollar terms. So we desperately wanted financing solutions for our needs as miners. And later on, this was in Venezuela, I helped people set up mines in other parts of the world. But then eventually I set up a mine in Canada with my best friend from university, Adam. And we had the same issue. Bitcoin revenues, fiat expenses, didn't want to sell the Bitcoin. We went around. We asked traditional finance. This is back in 2017. They laughed us out of the room. They said we were maniacs, or lunatics, actually, was the right adjective they used. And they told us that Bitcoin was not an asset. No one would ever use it as collateral, and they certainly didn't consider it an asset. We thought the opposite. We thought Bitcoin was the greatest collateral asset to lend against because it was global. It was 24/7 trading, no gap risk over the weekend, deeply liquid. And if we got this right in one market, we could take this to the world because a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. Doesn't matter where you're from. And so we decided to build the solution to our own problem. In 2018, we launched Canada. We launched Ledn and did Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan. And once we realized that Bitcoiners in Canada wanted this, I knew from Venezuela and Latin America that this product would have tremendous product market fit in LATAM. So we focused pretty quickly in making it accessible to several countries in Latin America, bring the products out into Spanish. But that's the journey of how I got into Bitcoin. It was really through necessity, and we found it as a lifeline in Venezuela. And once I saw what it could do for Venezuelans, and I understood that Venezuela was just one fiat domino falling, and every other domino would eventually face the same fortune, we decided to bet the house on it. And today we've grown to become the largest Bitcoin-backed lender in the world by volumes. And that's something that makes us tremendously proud.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, really. And what a story! An origin story, if you like. And you're quite right. I think is it like I'm not sure. It's Tether, Galaxy, and Ledn. Yeah, are kind of the big three at the moment, right?
Correct. But if you notice, the Tether and Galaxy don't lend to retail consumers.
Oh, that's right.
So in the retail world, Ledn is by far the largest one. And in the same report, actually, if you combine the book size of every other lender that does retail or consumers in that report, all other lenders combined are less than our book. Yep. So according to the report, we have more than half of the market as far as consumer Bitcoin-backed loans go.
What a head start. And you can just see this trend growing in the years ahead. And you mentioned, Mauricio, that, you saw Bitcoin early on as pristine collateral. So that's quite it's a specific term, isn't it? So I'd love from your perspective, just explain exactly what you mean when we say that Bitcoin is pristine collateral.
Absolutely. So many people, or not many people, let's start with the basic, starting point that a loan has two clients. You have the borrower that's taking the financing, but you also have the lender, the person who is providing that financing. So why is Bitcoin pristine collateral? Pristine collateral is effective and beneficial for both the borrower and the lender. For the borrower, the benefits for the borrower as a Venezuelan person or as a Colombian person are that Bitcoin is the first asset that is equal and uniform across the world. For example, if I'm servicing a client out of Colombia, his Bitcoin is worth the absolute same once he transfers it over to me than a client in any part of Europe or North America. It's one Bitcoin. So I can underwrite that person as long as they're compliant and in an eligible jurisdiction. I can underwrite those people identically. There's no appraisals. There's no country-specific credit scores. None of this matters because I can actually take your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is your worthiness, your credit worthiness per se to take on this loan. And so as an underwriter, it makes my life much easier because now I have an asset that is a collateral asset that is uniform. As a borrower, I can basically access the service whether I'm in Venezuela or Miami or Canada, and I'm going to get the same rates and I'm going to get world-class service. I'm facing the world's best lender because I can. And and that's not true as a lender, again, or as a borrower. If I'm in Miami or if I'm in Venezuela and I want to use gold as collateral, I'll be treated very differently because gold in a vault in Venezuela is not the same as gold in a vault in Florida. If I'm applying for a mortgage in Madrid, in Spain, my house is going to get appraised very differently than if that house was in Guadalajara, Mexico. So as a lender, it makes my underwriting much easier. And as a borrower, it gives me access to the world-class financial entities regardless with fair treatment, which was not possible before. So on the borrower side, it gives you access to world-class financing at fair rates. As a lender, it gives you the ability to underwrite credit to people all over the world in a uniform and equal manner. It's digital. It's faster. It can be sent and settled in minutes, not days. And as a lender, again, if one of my borrowers were to default, if somebody defaults on a mortgage, I have to evict that person. I have to foreclose that house. I have to liquidate that house and have to pay for all the legals. It's a very messy process. And if you miss one payment, I'm going to have to sell your entire house. Or if you default on the loan, it's completely binary. And also I have to be subject to bank holidays, the market's closed, etc. So it's not as liquid as, say, Bitcoin. So if I'm lending and my collateral is Bitcoin trades 24/7, and it has very, very deep liquidity, and it can be sold in fractions. So if a person, as a lender, if a person defaults on you, you can instantly sell the Bitcoin and make yourself whole again. So you don't have to go through a messy sort of appraisal process or eviction process. As a lender, you have better security against default. So it benefits both the borrower in the sense that it makes lending across the globe equal and fair. And it benefits the lender in that they have collateral that they can act on much faster. It can be transferred and settled much faster. And it helps me underwrite globally much more efficiently. So it is, in my humble opinion, the most pristine collateral that's ever existed today for all those reasons.
Yes, indeed. Very well articulated. Thank you, Mauricio. Now, I suppose the other side of this equation, if we've established that Bitcoin is pristine collateral, and we understand why people would not necessarily want to sell their Bitcoin. You explained that right at the beginning, and then that you found that when you were selling Bitcoin to cover your mining expenses, you always regret that. And I think so many people will have a similar story, especially, the further back you go, the more regret you have for selling Bitcoin. At the time, it seemed like a sensible decision. You're selling to just lock in profits or cover expenses, whatever the reason. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But with the benefit of hindsight, the fiat appreciation that Bitcoin has achieved since then is significant and almost certainly ahead of almost any other asset on the planet. So I suppose that's the context then. Mauricio, give us some of the reasons, I suppose, why someone would want to borrow against their Bitcoin, what they might do with it. There's lots of different reasons, lots of different use cases here. Please just kind of give us your perspectives.
Sure. So first, I'll give you a sort of broad-based mathematical example, and then I'll give you some specific use cases that we're seeing our clients do today. So from a mathematical perspective, if you look at when Ledn started, we issued our first loan on November 2nd, 2018. Bitcoin was at $3,650 that day. I still remember. So if you run a quick exercise and think of a person that took a $1,000 loan with Ledn back in 2018 and put half a Bitcoin as collateral, and that person kept their loan open until today, which you can. Loans at Ledn can be rolled into a new term without you having to make any additional payments. That $1,000 loan with half a Bitcoin as collateral today would be a $2,200 debt with $40,000 worth of collateral. So the net wealth of that person would have grown by 30 times by just simply not selling. So everybody that's used our product responsibly since we've been around has done incredibly well financially. So that's why people like the product and they keep coming back and they keep bringing their friends and their family, because the product works if you use it responsibly. What people are typically doing with these loans today is every time we see a run up in Bitcoin price, there's an immense amount of new wealth that's been created. So the people that bought at 50K, now that we're at 100, are now 2 times wealthier than when they bought their Bitcoin. So first, there is this realization of wealth by the repricing of the Bitcoin. After you see this wealth, then you have a desire to use it. You have this these conflicting emotions because you're now wealthier, but you want to access some of the wealth, but you also don't want to sell the asset that got you there. And so you enter into this decision tree, which is, do I sell the Bitcoin and pay the capital gains on it, depending on the jurisdiction that you're in? Or do I explore these financing options where, yes, you're transferring custody of the Bitcoin to a third party, but these third parties have now been around for 7+ years with a perfect track record, and they're fully regulated and licensed. And so by now, that decision is being made easier and easier for you as these products get better and safer. And today, what we see many people do is a lot of these people are young professionals. Many of them are around my age. They have growing families. Their wife's about to have a kid or their second kid. they need to buy a new house or they want to buy a new house. And because they are Bitcoin wealthy and perhaps fiat, short, when they go to the bank, they get the door slammed in their face. Even though they have millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, they slam the door in their face. They say, you can't buy the home. We don't consider Bitcoin an asset, and we don't see you have any fiat income. And frustrated, they would say, well, there's got to be a better way. And eventually they wind up at Ledn, where they can come to us, get the $1 million they need for their house. They put $2 million worth of collateral with us. We disperse the loans within a day. Our average funding time right now is 9.6 hours from application to funding. And so people get the funding they need. We don't check your credit score. We don't go into your credit history. For us, your Bitcoin is your credit worthiness. And you get the money to buy the house you want. So number one is we're seeing people purchase real estate with Bitcoin, whether for themselves or as investments or a second home or expansion of the first home, financing remodelings to their home. So that is a big use case today. The second one is starting businesses or financing business cash flow. So we service businesses, both private and publicly listed companies that operate under a Bitcoin standard. So most of their assets or excess balances are held in Bitcoin. And every so often, they'll have to finance payroll or a new expansion of a new project or paying out a new consultant, et cetera. They have some payments coming in later in the year. They don't want to sell their Bitcoin. They want to just bridge the cash flow. So they'll come to us, they'll take the cash they need, $500,000, $1 million, whatever the amount is, and they'll use it to finance their operations. Also, a lot of Bitcoin entrepreneurs use us to finance the build out of their companies and their projects. So both existing operating companies use us for cash flow management and operations and treasury management, and new companies or Bitcoiners starting new businesses use us to basically seed their initial investments, to take the money they need to get the business off the ground and running. So that's a second common bucket of uses. The third one I would say is buying more digital assets, buying more Bitcoin. So many people come take out loans because they want to buy more Bitcoin because of the time, or again, cash flow differentials between what they want today and what they're getting tomorrow. And then the fourth one is everyday expenses. So in the same way companies operate in a Bitcoin standard, many people operate in a Bitcoin standard too. They get paid in Bitcoin, they save in Bitcoin, and fiat life happens. Sometimes they'll need to help a relative with an emergency surgery, or they'll need to pay for a new computer, or they'll need to draw because they want to pay their latest installment of their tuition. So that one is also very common. But in terms of dollar figures, every time we get a house loan, those are multiples in terms of dollars than the person financing everyday expenses. But those are very real buckets of use cases today.
Yeah. Very well explained. And just out of interest, just quickly, love to understand, Mauricio, how when someone comes to you and they say, I need to get a loan, I have X amount of Bitcoin. What is the process whereby they prove to you the Bitcoin that they own? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so our system or Ledn can offer up to 50% of the value of your Bitcoin that you place as collateral. In order to interact with our service, you do have to pass KYC. So we are a fully regulated and licensed entity. We are required to basically collect your personal information, even though we protect it better than I believe anyone else in the space. And Ledn's never had any issues. We protect the data the same way we protect assets. And so you do have to go through the KYC process. Then when you want to apply for a loan, you'll select the amount you want, the Bitcoin you want to place as custody. And once you are approved, you have to transfer the Bitcoin to Ledn's custody in order for the loan to become effective. So there is transfer of the Bitcoin from the borrower to us, the lender, so that we can facilitate the loan. And the Bitcoin stays with us or a funding partner throughout the lifetime of the loan. It stays in custody. It's not lent out. But the reality is you have to transfer the Bitcoin in order for it to act as collateral to the loan, and then it gets the process started.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's the only way it could work. Thank you for that. Yeah, what else? I see that, you guys, as you said, you kind of the number one Bitcoin lender in the space by volume, especially for, I guess, retail investors or holders. I could see Coinbase Ventures is as an investor, you have like a big team. I guess you probably don't even need investors now because you'll be growing so rapidly. But just speak to, I suppose, that kind of the early pathway and people that backed you and where that is going now. What do you see coming next? Big questions, I know.
No, it's a great question. So as you mentioned, Ledn, over our lifetime, we've raised over $100 million in venture funding. Among the investors or most notable investors that people will know would be Coinbase Ventures. They've been with us since our seed extension round and all the way through the B. We have White Star Capital, who led our Series A. We have Dan Tapiero and 10T, who led our Series B. We have Kingsway Capital with Manny. We have Parify, Hash Ventures, Global Founders Capital, and a plethora. Alexis Ohanian, the co-founder of Reddit. So there's a plethora of names that have backed us through the years. Our last price round was back in 2021. We've been profitable for I can't remember how long now, but we've been profitable for quite some time now. So we haven't needed to raise additional capital. And to your point, the business has grown so much that we stand on our own 2 feet. The business is organically sustainable. We don't need external funding anymore, or at this stage. And we're just that focused on building what we believe is the best Bitcoin-backed lending platform in the world. Our investors are incredibly supportive, have been and continue to be incredibly supportive. In fact, many of them use us as an example of resilience in the markets, just because of everything that the platform has withstood and the name that we built over that time. So we're immensely grateful to everyone that's backed us to date, and we look forward to taking this to where we believe it can go. They believed in the vision very early on, so.
Well, speaking of where they believe it can go and where you believe it could go, Mauricio, interesting times in Bitcoin with the rise of, what we call, I guess, Bitcoin treasury companies, obviously Michael Saylor and Strategy now leading the way, and there's MetaPlanet and there's various other entities that are doing similar sorts of interesting and fascinating financial engineering all around Bitcoin in a way you were a pioneer of this kind of movement as well. It's all just ways that people can hold on to their Bitcoin, acquire more Bitcoin. That is the game. It's an accumulation game. But just interested in what you see happening over the next decade, I guess, Mauricio, in terms of, it could be individual investor trends, what happens with the big treasury companies, or just Bitcoin itself as it becomes ever more part of the global financial system. What do you see happening?
Oh, how long do we have? No, I'm kidding. I'll give you my sort of succinct, hot takes, if you would. So, where Bitcoin belongs in a portfolio, I believe, my thesis personally is that we're going to have fiat and Bitcoin coexist for quite some time, probably my entire lifetime. And when you have a world where simultaneously you have a hard asset and a weak asset that's deemed, the one you need to spend or the money you need to spend, good money drives bad money out. Nobody wants to spend their good money. Everybody wants to spend their weak money. So we have seen over the lifetime of Bitcoin this sort of debate between a reserve asset or a medium of exchange, right? Some companies are building tools that help you keep the Bitcoin and draw from it, but always keeping the upside. Some people have been building to help you spend that Bitcoin and sort of make that process easier through things like Lightning, et cetera. We have always been in the reserve camp because from my experience in Venezuela, when I realized that Bitcoin was appreciating in US dollar terms and the Bolivar was appreciating and the dollar was appreciating in Bolivar terms, you very quickly understand what the top of the food chain is. And you never want to spend what you have at the top of the food chain because it's accruing value while everything else in your quiver gets depleted in value. So you're going to spend the stuff that's diminishing in value, and you're going to push to keep the stuff that's accruing in value. So I think Bitcoin is going to become the cornerstone of many portfolios more so internationally than in the United States. In the United States, in North America or OECD countries, you've had the property, your main household, be that cornerstone for many people. And it accrues in value. It's a hard asset. You have a mortgage on it, which is basically a short position on fiat that's anchored by the hard asset, which is the house. And that house appreciates over time. Everybody here probably knows what a HELOC is, a home equity line of credit. So when you need cash, you don't go and sell your house. You borrow against the house. And it's much easier than going and selling your house and trying to go find somewhere else to rent. Similarly, I think as people understand the versatility that Bitcoin gives your portfolio. For example, if you need cash, you can get it within hours at Ledn. It's actually simpler than getting a HELOC. It's cheaper. Well, it will get cheaper, but it's faster and more efficient than getting a HELOC. And I believe people all over the world will understand this. In places like Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, you can't get a HELOC. Even if you own the home, the bank won't give you the HELOC because the credit markets are broken. In places like Venezuela, Mexico, and LATAM and emerging markets, it's also much harder to own equities in the US. So this whole concept of America or sort of North America seeing Bitcoin as just one more asset in this fantastic financial ecosystem they have is very different than the financial ecosystem people operate in Latin America, Europe, and other parts of the world. So for these reasons, I think Bitcoin is going to become the cornerstone of your portfolio, and you will look at things like equities and property as subpar, if that makes sense. It just allows you, it opens less doors than the Bitcoin opens for you. So that's in the use case of Bitcoin side. On the treasury companies, on your question around the treasury companies, I think we're going through this very interesting period where companies that have excess cash flows are getting rewarded by the market by putting those cash flows into Bitcoin. So moving away from the melting ice cube and putting it into digital gold, which is accruing value. I think that this now today they're getting praise and multiples or praise and applause as reflected by their share price every time they make one of these announcements. But I would argue that giving somebody a prize because they did the thing that they were supposed to do, i.e., not keep your savings in a currency that's debasing, is akin to giving children cookies every time they wash their hands. Like this eventually will stop because it will become what you should do with your excess cash. You shouldn't get rewarded by doing something that you should be doing. You should be punished if you don't do it. So I don't believe that these treasury companies will continue to have these multiples on their net asset value as this type of God-given right. I think these multiples to net asset value will come to back down to earth eventually. And there will be some of these treasury companies that are committed to the mission and keep the coins and keep this view. But there will be others that in the next bull market, they're just going to cough it all right back out into the market and say, well, it was fun while it lasted. So I don't think that I don't think that you'll continue to see this massive excitement when the 177th company adds Bitcoin to their treasury. Like the first one, the second one, the third one, they're all cool. The first one in each country, that's great. But by the time you hit the sort of 200th company announcing this, it won't, and I would argue most likely will not make headlines by that point.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Mauricio. All right, let's finish up this part of the podcast and do so just by, for anyone listening, perhaps they're holding some Bitcoin and they're like, well, I do have a big expense coming up. Perhaps it makes sense to use Ledn as a service. Just quickly run through any of the countries that, people can or can't use your service. And for people that can use the service, what is the easiest way for them to find out more? What should they do? Where should they go?
Definitely. So we service a large part of the United States. I believe it's 29 states. To confirm eligibility in your country or state, you can go directly to the website. We service over 100 countries. So chances are we service your place where you live. So you can check it out. We service a great deal of LATAM and Europe as well. Again, for country specifics, you can get into the website and get the answer you need right away. If you are interested in looking at this product, if you're evaluating this, don't take it from me. I'm one of the co-founders. I'm always going to tell you it's great. Read what our clients have to say. We're immensely proud of our reviews and our team. So just Google Ledn and any GPT Grok, Chat GPT, or any one of these things, asked about Ledn, asked about what people have to say in the industry about us, read our reviews. Trustpilot is there. Read what people have to say about us on X, Twitter, social media, once you're comfortable with everything and you've decided to work with us, generally what happens is people get interested in Bitcoin-backed loans. They start doing a survey of who offers this. Ledn stands out usually because we have the longest running track record. We were the first to ever do proof of reserves, still continue to do it. And we are the largest and the best known. So once you decide you want to do business with us, you can log into the website, ledn.io. Opening an account takes 2 minutes. Passing KYC takes 2 minutes if you have your ID and a phone and a proof of address document. Loan application takes 2 minutes, and funding average time is 9.6 hours from the time you send the collateral. So in theory, if you like what you see and you want to do business with us, you could be off and running with your loan proceeds in a day.
Yes, indeed. And just while you've been talking there, Mauricio, I have been to the website and found where I can check the product and services eligibility. And for my country that I'm in, New Zealand, all of your products are available to me. So that's, great to know. Good to know. All right, time to finish up the podcast, Mauricio. And we do that, of course, by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
I'm very much up for it.
Excellent. I'm just going to run some questions at you. I just want you to give me kind of quick fire answers, hot take style, if you like. Let's see what you have to say. Question one for you is, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
3/4 of the way to maximalism. I think some chains are useful. Most of them are not.
Yep. Very nuanced, diplomatic, and probably accurate answer there. All right, Mauricio, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Bitcoin is the only asset I would hold for 10 years.
Very nice. Okay. Look, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So we touched on this a little bit, but maybe let's talk specifically, just Bitcoin. What does Bitcoin look like in 10 years' time?
10 years from now, I believe Bitcoin will be in the balance sheets of most sovereigns and most of the world's top investors. I think it'll be in at least the portfolios of 25 to 40% of the world. And it will still not be used for spending. It will be used for accruing value and debasing fiat.
I love it. All right. Another way of thinking about this is, of course, a quote that you will have heard by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Now, with that in mind, Mauricio, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Yeah. Currencies are going to continue to get debased. My equivalent of that is everything is Venezuela. It's just not evenly distributed. And what that means is everybody's going to get their currency debased into oblivion. It can be a fast way there, like happened to us. It can be a slow bleed there, like it's happening in Europe, the US, etc. But the direction of travel is very clear. So I would say the future is here. You're getting boiled. We are the frogs. Some of us notice and are jumping out of the pot. Some of us are still sitting there swimming in this warm water, and it's not going to get more pleasant.
Yep. Oh, that's a great answer. Wonderfully said. Thank you. Brings us nicely to the final question, which is very simply, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Ooh, I mean, this was going to be super cliche, but Atlas Shrugged. It's the,
yes.
That one. Yeah, it was a classic. I'm not a big fan, believe it or not, of fiction. I think I had enough with Venezuela. Venezuelan reality is stranger than fiction. And I saw that book, and I think it very, very eloquently communicates the point of the dangers of trying to do good. But when you basically are when you're trying to do good, many times you have unintended consequences. And And I think it's a cautionary tale of what happens when you try to protect everybody from everything and see the free markets as an evil force. I think you have to respect both, and you can't be on either side of that argument at all times. There will be times and places where having social networks and support for certain parts of the population will be warranted, and I would argue valid. But there are also parts of the world and business where overregulation is just choking progress. So I really think, like everything else in life, you have to have a balance, and oftentimes we go too far in or too far there, and the nature just self corrects.
Yes, indeed. Well, shout out to Ayn Rand, of course, Atlas Shrugged, published in 1957. It was kind of used as a vehicle for Rand's philosophy of objectivism, and she championed, reason, individualism, and laissez-faire capitalism. Very good. Mauricio, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us today and spending some time with us to talk all things Bitcoin, Ledn, how to, lend money by using your Bitcoin as pristine collateral. Just to close it out, please, again, shout out your websites, social media handles, anything like that. Go for gold.
Definitely. Ledn.io, LEDN.io. Our social media handles is HODL with Ledn, so HODL with LEDN. And you can follow me in my personal account at Cryptonomist, Cryptonomist with an A at the end. We have open doors in any and every way of contacting us if you want to learn more.
Thank you so much. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy.